Good afternoon, grade 11s. We are going to continue with our database, but since we are done with calculations on the report, I have decided to go back so that we can iron out a few things on the field properties on our table before we go to the next topic, which is HTML. Right, so there are three things that I need us to touch on today on this video, which is the primary key, when you're supposed to use it, how you're supposed to use it, and what its function. And then we're also going to look at the format, the format on our field properties, and then we also look at the required option, right? And when you're supposed to use it, because sometimes in the test or in the exams, you won't be asked directly to format to change the required to yes or no, or to make use of the greater than sign on format. The questions will sound very, very vague, but then when you check the things that you were supposed to do, you will find that they are very, very easy and straightforward. Right, let's get to it. So we're going to start with our primary key. As you can see, I have opened the database file that we were using on the previous videos. And then this is the file. So what we're going to do is we are going to work on this table. The name of the table is volunteer data. And remember, all the time when you want to modify anything on the table, you have to go to the design view, right? Okay, let's change the view. Right, so as you can see, our ID field already, the primary key is applied to it, right? So let's start with what a primary key is. Okay, so a primary key is a database feature that one can use to uniquely identify each record or in a row in a database table, ensuring data accuracy by preventing the duplicate of entries, meaning a primary key in a way limits or restrict the duplication of the values when you are entering them in your table in that particular field, right? So as you can see, the primary key in this table is applied to the ID field, meaning when you go back to the datasheet view of this table, all the ID numbers of each and every new record will have its own unique number, right? Because we don't want what? The duplicates. Okay, so that is the function of the primary key. Another thing, in a test or in an exam, you won't be asked to apply the primary key to like an ID field or school field. The question will just say, apply the primary key to an appropriate field. So in this case, whenever you have to look for the appropriate field, you must look for a field where you don't want the duplicate of the values, right? Meaning you cannot use the name field because you may find that 5 people have the same names. But then when it comes to ID numbers, that's where everyone have their own unique numbers. Even twins have unique ID numbers, right? So you look for a field where you don't want a duplicate of the records, and that's how you make use of the primary key, right? And then the next field property that I mentioned is the format. Okay, the format field property. Okay, so here's another question, or before we do that, let's go back to our datasheet view so that we can see how our data looks like. So as you can see, we have the ID, first name, surname, age, up until the shift amount, right? And look at this, your first names and the surnames, they are all in small caps with the first capital letter, right? Here's a question in the test or the exam. The question says, apply a field property or format the surname field to make sure that the data entered is in capital letters or all caps, right? As you can see, we have confirmed that our data is in small caps, right? So it means we have to now what? Go back to the design view. There you go. So on the design view, first you must click on the field that you want to apply the field properties to. Okay. And then another thing, this question, when it says format format the field property. It means you are not supposed to use the input mask. You have to make use of what? Of format. So as I've indicated in class, we make use of the basic operators if we want to format our text into capital letters, small letters, etc. Right? So here, if you want all your surnames to appear in capital letters, you'll make use of the greater than sign. Right? So you don't type the greater than sign on input mask, you type it on format, because we are formatting. We are not setting any restriction. We are merely formatting so that every surname entered appears in capital letters, right? So after typing the greater than sign, I will then return to the datasheet view so that we can check if our surnames now appear in capital letters. Yes, and there you go. Our surnames are all in capital letters, right? So even if you can start typing in small letters, look at this. Even if you start typing in small letters, I'm going to type Rose. When you move to the next record, you will see that now Rose will be in what? Capital letters, right? And another thing, remember our ID, we made use of the primary key, and the data type selected was auto number, meaning you don't have to type in the ID number. When you enter the new record, the ID will be automatically entered for you. There you go. There's Rose and in capital letters, but then we typed in what? In small letters. Perfect. The last one is the required option, right? Very, very important. Let me go back to the design view. Okay, so usually they don't ask these questions in a straightforward approach. The questions somehow appear vague and complicated, right? Here's another question. Apply a field property to the grade field so that when data entered, the field cannot be left blank. Do you hear that? Now, when you look at your field properties, you'll be like, what am I supposed to do here? And it's very, very simple and straightforward. So first, we're going to select our grade field, right? And then we need to change these field property of the required. I'm sure you have seen this in the Google form when you were busy with your phase 2. There were some options like, say, maybe the biography or some of the questions where you actually activated the required option, meaning that it is compulsory or required for that particular question to be answered before the respondent can submit the form, right? So same thing with database. If you don't want this particular field, the grade field, to be left blank, meaning it is compulsory for each and every record to have a grade, then it means here on the required field property, you're going to change that no to yes, right? So right here, we have a no. You're going to click on the down arrow and then you select yes, right? Meaning each and every time when you enter a new record, you have to make sure that the grade field has been entered, right? So let's save and then we go and check it out. Look at this. Yes, yes, yes. There you go. Scroll down. We have Rose. There's Rose. Now let's try to enter the second record before we enter the grade for Rose and see if we will be able to. Look at this. And then I'm going to start typing. Let's say John. Ne? And then let's try and go to the next record. There you go. See, when I try to enter the next record, it says you must enter a value in the volunteer data grade field, ne? Meaning this is what? A required field, a compulsory field. I can't enter the next record until I do what? I enter the age for who? Sorry, the grade for who? For John, ne? Because, so for Rose, it didn't limit us because this is where we are starting, ne? So the previous records are not affected, but then starting here from John going downwards, it is compulsory. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to type the grade for John, and then let's see if we won't be allowed to go to the next record. There you go. We are now allowed. That is all for this video. Bye. Enjoy your day.